Alright, so for the last couple of days I've been playing around with this guy here. This is the new Walksnail Avatar GT2 kit. And just in case it's not obvious, this is a camera and video transmitter combo which is designed for use with the Walksnail Avatar HD FPV system. And this new kit is Walksnail's new flagship. It's basically sort of the latest and greatest camera and video transmitter sort of technology that they apparently have. And as you can see in the box, it says here that this is very much designed for long-range flying. Now, the reason why they say that is because this video transmitter is a very powerful one. This is a 2-watt video transmitter, and they've also got lots of like clever code and stuff going on with like frequency hopping and things like that that should enable you to use this kit on a drone to fly very, very long range. Now, I can't really fly long range because it's very, very illegal where I live. However, that doesn't stop me from testing the kit, and that is very much what I've been doing the last couple of days. There are still ways to test a system like this without, flying very long range. So in this video, I'm just going to show you very quickly sort of the results of my tests. Now, the first thing I want to do is I just want to talk about the actual physical camera and video transmitter, because I've been using the Walksnail system for several years now. I was a fairly early adopter of it. And it's been very interesting to sort of kind of witness the design evolution of the hardware and also the software. And to also see sort of a lot of the teething problems that the system had in the early days and see how it slowly got better as they've sort of improved things. I mean, straight away, I can say that like this is the nicest sort of like camera and video transmitter combo that Walksnail has come out with. Yeah, if you look back at like some of the earlier video transmitters they made, where if you wanted to like upload firmware to the video transmitter or take footage off the video transmitter, you had to use these horrible little like USB things with like these really delicate plugs in them that like just broke. That was terrible. It's so nice to see that Walksnail has finally kind of sort of matured, and they've reached a point now where this system, not only does it have a SD card slot, so rather than rely on the onboard memory, you just got an SD card that you can just put in and out. But you've also got an actual USB-C port as well, which just makes it so much nicer, so much easier to do firmware updates and to get the footage on and off. It's just nice, sensible design, and it's really nice to see that the Walksnail system has adopted that now. Another thing as well that I really love is the fact that the video transmitter now uses antennas with MMCX connectors rather than the horrible little UFL ones we used to have before. They were very delicate and they would easily pop off, and you had to put this little bracket on, and yeah, that was horrible. So much nicer to have MMCX connectors. I mean, I personally think that anyway. And also just a very simple thing, the fact that this new video transmitter has a built-in fan. So in the past, I quite often on builds about to add my own fan just to keep the video transmitter cool, because quite often it's embedded deep inside of an aircraft. It's just a simple thing, but very nice to see that this now has a fan built in. Now, the thing that I don't love is the fact that obviously this is quite big, it's quite chunky. This is the biggest video transmitter that the Walksnail system has come out with so far, and depending on what aircraft or what drone you're trying to build, that might be an issue. For me, it's not so much of an issue, but again, obviously you're always going to prefer a smaller video transmitter to a big one, so it's worth me mentioning that. And the only thing I don't love is the fact that this video transmitter, the minimum voltage required to make it work is 11 volts. That's very weird. It's kind of sort of standard in sort of the drone industry that things are either powered by sort of like 5 volts or 9 volts or 12 volts. 11 volts is just a very weird voltage requirement. And I have firsthand witnessed someone get caught out by this as well. One of my friends, he actually wired this into his drone without realizing that, and then found the camera wouldn't work because he had the wrong voltage. So just something to be mindful of. But anyway, that's enough talking about the actual physical thing. Let's actually have a look at some flight footage, because over the last couple of days I have done quite a bit of testing. So this footage you're seeing here, this was done on a beautiful, bright, sunny day, and as you can see, this looks absolutely fantastic. The camera footage, the quality is really, really nice. The camera in this kit is labelled as just being the Avatar Pro camera, which apparently uses a 1/1.8 inch Sony Starvis 2 sensor. We'll talk more about that in a bit. But as you can see, this is really, really nice, clear footage, and there's great like wide dynamic range. The exposure looks good. Like it's a very, very nice looking image coming out of the camera. Now, obviously, as I said, like where I live legally, I can't fly sort of like super long range. However, I did install this camera on my Hewing T2, which is a very big fixed wing aircraft, and it's also got some very big bright lights on it. So long story short, I can fly this a little bit further than maybe you could with a smaller drone, and sort of still legally maintain line of sight. So I did do a little bit of sort of like range testing. And I'm able to report that the link on this worked very, very well. One of the sort of the highlights of this new GT2 kit is the fact that it's got something on it called frequency hopping, and also adaptive power output, which basically means that the output of the video transmitter, it's always like sort of adjusting itself to try and maintain the link. It's always adjusting the frequency, and it's also adjusting the power output. And the power output goes all the way up to 2 watts on this as well, which is very, very powerful. So yeah, because of the fact that the video transmitter is always kind of sort of like adjusting itself, it means that it does maintain a very, very good link. Even when I sort of push the system by sort of trying to fly behind some trees. And at one point, I even flew behind myself almost a mile. I think it's about 1.2 kilometers or something. And the antennas I got on my goggles they're pretty basic Walksnail antennas. It's not like fancy third-party antennas. They are just fairly basic antennas. But yeah, I was able to fly behind myself. I think it's about 1.2 kilometers, which is very impressive. Normally you'd struggle to sort of get like 200 or 300 meters behind yourself. You normally have to turn yourself to always face the aircraft. But to fly that far behind myself really indicates how powerful this system is. So in theory, yeah, you would probably fly this, miles and miles and miles. I can't remember exactly what it is they advertise. I can't remember if it's like 20 kilometers or 50 kilometers or something. But yeah, they say that this system is good for a very, very long range. And yeah, I can very much believe it. Now, anyway, as I said, this was me sort of flying on a very, very bright sunny day. But the history of my channel, certainly last year, I spent quite a lot of time looking at night vision cameras. And, as you've seen in the thumbnail for this video, that's very much the part of this I'm very interested in. And that is because, in the sort of the product description, it very much suggests that this camera on the GT2 kit is supposed to be very, very good in low light. So obviously, I've been very interested to try that. Now, before I get to the night vision footage, I just want to show you a bit of other daytime footage that I did on a overcast day. I think it's just important to kind of show you, different lighting conditions. So, this footage you're seeing now was shot on a very sort of overcast day. It still looks very, very good though, as you can see. Still very good, clear image. It's not grainy or horrible in any way. It's a very good image, very good wide dynamic range, exposure, contrast, all those things. It all looks very, very nice. So I've got no complaints about using it on a overcast day. But yeah, let's now have a look at how well this camera works in the dark. So I did a test with this, I think it's about an hour after sunset. Now we are very much approaching summer here at the moment. So an hour after sunset, it's still not fully dark. In fact, I think sunset was at 8:25, and it didn't officially get dark. Nighttime doesn't officially start until 11:15 at night, so several hours later. So long story short, the test that you're about to see now, this was done during twilight. Getting dark, but not fully dark. Now, in the system settings, you can actually configure the camera between day and night mode. Now, I did try both. However, the footage I'm going to show you, this was recorded in night mode, just because I think that probably makes more sense. And yeah, again, I was using my Hewing T2 VTOL, so this allowed me to sort of take off vertically, fly, and then come back and land vertically, which in a minute you'll see why that was important. So yeah, here is the footage from the GT2 whilst flying sort of in the dark, and as you can see, it's not great. I was actually very surprised by this, because a lot of sort of Walksnail cameras and Caddx cameras, obviously Caddx who makes Walksnail, a lot of their cameras have actually got very good night vision capabilities. They definitely make the best cameras for sort of like seeing in the dark of any of the manufacturers that I've sort of encountered. But yeah, as you can see, the footage from the GT2 in the dark really isn't very good at all. It's very, very contrasty. It's black and white, or very much almost entirely black and white. If there is any color, it's very, very muted. And yet you just can't see any details. I mean, where there's lights, you can see the lights, but then when there's not lights, it's just black. Now, a couple of years ago, I think sort of 2 or 3 years ago, Walksnail came out with the Avatar Pro camera, and that camera was fantastic at seeing in the dark. I'll put some footage on screen here so you can see a comparison. Flying in the exact same location, very much in the dark. That camera can see really, really well. Whereas this new Avatar GT2 camera, it can't see very well at all. I was really surprised by this because the GT2 is supposed to be, Walksnail's new sort of flagship FPV kit. So you'd think that they would put their best camera in this kit, but apparently not. Now it's weird because from what I've read in the specs, the camera in the GT2 is supposed to be using the same sensor as what was in the Avatar Pro that I just showed you. It's the 1/1.8 inch Sony Starvis 2 sensor. So I do wonder if maybe just this camera quality looking so bad in the dark is actually something more to do with software as opposed to hardware. In theory, the hardware is supposed to be just as good, so it should be able to see in the dark, but for some reason it's not. So I do wonder if it's a software issue going on. But yeah, as you can see, or as you can't see, you can't see any details sensibly at all. And if I was flying a normal fixed wing drone at this point in these light levels, I would really struggle to land because, you can't see the ground. You'd just be descending and descending and descending until suddenly you hit the ground. And, you have to rely on your OSD to, try and measure your altitude. You're probably going to end up crashing your drone, assuming it's a fixed wing drone, into the ground. Now, luckily, like I said, I was flying my Hearing T2, which is a vertical takeoff and landing drone, so I was able to land it safely. It obviously just descends down to the ground. But yeah, ultimately my conclusion is, at the moment at least, the GT2, whilst it is a fantastic kit for daytime flying on like a really bright sunny day or even on an overcast day, very, very good kit for flying in daylight. And probably got very, very good range, stuff like that. Lots of good things to say about this camera combo, but it's no good for flying in the dark. Hey, so Future Gears here. So since recording that narration you just heard, I've done a little bit more experimentation, and I think I've discovered something interesting. So I've done some experiments at home here where I've just been testing the night vision capabilities of the GT2 in my living room, and I've also been doing the exact same tests with my Avatar Pro camera that I've had since 2023. And the interesting thing that I found is that actually both of them seem to be, almost identical. Now, this is interesting, and it's a little bit weird because, back in 2023 when I was using the Avatar Pro HD camera, I was blown away with how good that camera was at seeing in the dark. However, now I'm looking at it and it doesn't look that good. And, obviously it also looks very similar to the footage from the GT2, which also doesn't look that good. So I think my original theory that I mentioned in that previous narration might be true. I think that with the sort of the latest firmware, I can't remember the exact version that I've got, I'll put it on the screen, but I think that with the latest firmware version, they've done something which has, kind of ruined the night vision capabilities of the Avatar Pro camera and also the camera on the GT2. I think the camera on the GT2, from what I can tell, is actually the same camera as the Avatar Pro camera. So yeah, I don't think it's a hardware issue. I think it's a firmware issue. I can't prove this, but this is my my theory. So yeah, I just thought it was important to mention that. I was quite critical of the night vision footage of the GT2 just a moment ago, but I think it's a firmware issue. Now, obviously, not many people fly in the dark. 99.9% of people fly in the middle of the day. So I guess it's not an issue that many people, if anyone, has flagged up. But I don't know, if my theory is right and there is something wrong with the firmware. Maybe Walksnail, mechanics, you'll look into this and maybe it's something that can be fixed. It would be good if it could, because, as I know from my test with the Avatar Pro several years ago, it was very good at seeing in the dark, and it would be a shame to lose that capability, for that camera and also for the new GT2. But anyway, so my conclusion of the GT2 is that ultimately, I think it's a very, very good bit of kit. It's definitely the best kit that Walksnail has made to date. As I said in my sort of previous bit of narration, it's been interesting to see sort of the Walksnail hardware evolve over the years. It's now become a very refined product, a very usable product now, unlike some of the previous versions. I just, the list of things about the GT2 which are good, is quite long. I love the really high power 2-watt max output, fantastic. The fact it's got the dynamic power adjustment thing and the frequency hopping thing, very, very cool. Absolutely love the fact that it's got a USB-C port and a proper SD card slot. Those are fantastic features. Love the fact it's got a fan built into it. Love the build quality of it. Love the MMCX connectors for the antennas. Ultimately, yeah, just love just about everything about this kit. I pretty much have nothing but praise about it. And it's like 99.9% of people are going to be using this in the daytime. So I don't really have any critique about that. In the daytime, as you saw, it works very, very well. My only sort of negatives would be that the VCX is a little bit on the big side, and at the moment the night vision isn't really working that well. But yeah, how many people are going to be using the night vision? Probably not that many. And yeah, maybe if I'm right, it can be fixed with a firmware update. So yeah, that's my conclusion. GT2, very cool bit of kit. Pretty much I've only got good things to say about it. Anyway, I've basically run out of things to say now. Other than, if you enjoyed watching this video, please do give it a like down below. And also, if you could hype it, I would be very, very grateful. And yeah, guess I will catch you in the next one. Cheers. Bye.